morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you are watching this. Welcome back to episode 92 of the St Abijang podcast for all things Heart of Midlothian. Joining you as always is myself, Ewan Ramsey, and Alan Scrimger, back from the international break as we are all. Alan, how you doing, good sir? You well?
Yeah, mate, I'm good. The international break was a chance to detox from all things Heart of Midlothian for a couple of weeks, which was quite nice and obviously very needed.
As I can see, a bit of a self that was a care as well with that brand new haircut and mine as well. A couple of glorious bastards, love it, sir.
Absolutely.
And what else is also glorious as well? That Hearts are back, eh? Hearts are back. I'm gonna win the lot. But yeah, as we saw at the weekend there, back to winning ways, where we had Aberdeen visit Tynecastle on the Saturday, and we somehow managed to come away with a 2-0 victory over the Dons, and first 3 points in which feels like a lifetime. So we're going to go through a bit of that, obviously, of course, and we'll obviously do a wee preview for next week's trip to St Mirren, where it'll probably all go tits up again, but until then, Hearts are back. So we do hope you enjoy it as always, guys, and if you want to get in contact with us via our socials as well, please feel free to do so on screen and in the description as always. And if you are not yet subscribed to the St Abijang podcast via our YouTube page, please think about subscribing. We will get to Spotify like at some point, guys. I do promise you. We'll probably still be making that promise next year, but we will get it at some point. So yeah, we do hope you enjoy it as always, guys. So yes, Alan, 3 points from the weekend's game against Aberdeen. I don't know about you, but it felt not a shock, but almost as if it was hello there, sir. But yeah, as always, guys, we can talk about the starting lineup as we do. So a few wee changes. Starting lineup of Clark, Atkinson, Kent, Rowles, and the Kingsley at the back, with the centre of the Cammy Devlin and Haring. And we also had Vargas, Boyce, Oda, and Shankland. So I guess we can start off with most notably, Alan, our beloved left back, man of many, Alex Cochrane, has been confirmed that he will be out for 6 weeks due to an ankle injury. So with that in mind, Alan, what were your thoughts on the injury itself? Because it kind of just came out of it was nowhere, and the starting lineup as well against Aberdeen, if you please.
Yeah, I mean the Cochrane injury was one of those that obviously you don't want to get any player injured, of course, but I lots of people are saying, oh, we get a lot of injuries in training and what are they doing and what the facilities and all that. And I get it, like we do seem to pick up a lot of training ground injuries, which are not ideal.
Hmm.
But I think we'd mentioned, or I don't know whether it was you or I that mentioned it, but a few weeks ago we were talking about, Stephen Kingsley having the chance to make that left back position his, and the fact
Hmm.
that for the start of the season anyway, he hadn't really done anything that makes me go, I'm happy with him being the left
Hmm.
back. But in recent weeks, he's certainly improved a lot. We've seen a bit more of the Stephen Kingsley that we know. Obviously, he's yet to rattle in a free kick, but
Of course.
from a defensive point of view and from a going forward point of view, he's certainly improved a lot. So, I think it's interesting because there are positions in the team that I would be more frustrated if a player had been injured. But left back, the fact that we've obviously, as I say, got Stephen Kingsley and also your man Andy Halliday can cover there.
Hmm.
We've seen Alan Forrest play there as well,
Yeah.
whether we like that or not. So there are
No.
options. It's not as if we're struggling for that. The other one, in terms of fullbacks, just to obviously mention it briefly while we're talking about team news, obviously Natty played at right back in the game against Aberdeen. There was the news about Ofaya. He
Hmm.
had a medical incident a few weeks ago, had to go back down to Brighton. I don't know whether we acknowledged that in last episode. I don't know if it happened at the time, but he had a medical incident. I think he fainted in training or something like that. I don't know all the ins and outs of it, but Robbie, fucking hell, I'm going to keep saying that.
Christ almighty.
Nazy,
Fucking
fucking
anxiety
hell.
there just hit me in the chest. Jesus.
Fucking hell. Oh, Jesus. Had a throwback there. Had a flashback. I'm not fond of that. Nazy had come out and said that Ofaya will be coming back to Hearts at some point. So that's good news.
Yeah,
Nice
of
to see
course.
him back, hopefully sooner rather than later. I think it was quite a serious one. There was talks of, heart condition and all the rest of it, which is obviously for a player so young to have something like that is
Right.
scary. But yeah, it's good news that he's apparently not far away from coming back. So that's nice. Um,
Absolutely.
Talking about the team news in general, I think it was the strongest team sheet we could put out. I know people were not very fond of Devlin and Haring as a two, but I think when you look at the options that we have, I think they are our two most experienced and our two probably better options in that midfield.
Hmm. And I mean, like it's quite interesting you've mentioned that as well, Alan, because obviously both the pre and the post match interviews that Naismith gave, obviously I can understand like sort of fans and like being a bit like sort of agitated in terms of a Haring and Devlin was a partnership, and part of what Naismith was saying that like that he wants to try and to get the squad to actually be a bit more on the front foot like as soon as the game starts to try and make was it braver passes like I think his like his words were. So
Mm-hmm.
and them two, I wouldn't say they were identical players, but they kind of play in the same vein where they're more of like a defensive, but like sort of minded. Was it a central mid? And I think what we've
Mm-hmm.
seen throughout the last, well, I mean, arguably like sort of at the start of the season where the Cammy's been a bit more was it more like attacking minded as opposed to just being like sort of get the ball back like and then just the dart and attack. So I think that's been was relatively pleasing as well. And like for all as much as I've had my like sort of issues in the past with Haring, he's a stable choice. Like I don't think I don't think he's the kind of guy where you think like 1 week he'll play shit, like the next week he like he'll play absolutely fantastic. Like I mean, you could say that he is a more consistent player. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's ever a bad thing for them to actually be like sort of as a partnership too. Like was it
Yeah.
was it like in the squad, but just on those was it comments that in Naze he said obviously we'll go through the whole game like a wee bit more as we go on, but just from your views like sort of the whole game, I know that there was quite a bit of talk of saying like were we actually good or were Aberdeen actually that bad? Would you say that there
Mm-hmm.
was a compromise between the two, and would you also feel in the contrast to Naismith were the comments at the end of the game saying that we were a bit was braver with those last like sort of was it passes in the was it in the final third? Would you feel it like we actually done that a wee bit more?
Yeah, I think so. I think, Naismith's always been saying about, having a bit more brave, being a bit more brave on the ball and taking a few more risks. And like you say about Peter Haring, I adore Peter Haring, everybody knows that, but
Mm-hmm.
there are elements of his game that I don't know if they suit what Naismith is wanting or hoping his midfielders do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Again, I'm judging it off the Motherwell game because I was there. Didn't get to the Aberdeen game, unfortunately, but Peter Haring is a safe, like you said, he's a safe option. He's a safe bet, but a large percentage of Peter Haring's play is sideways
Yeah.
on occasions, and that doesn't help. It doesn't help the forward movement, shall we say?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I'm still very much a fan of Devlin and Haring as a two because I think when they're on form, they you know combine very well and they click together and it works. But there were moments, in the Aberdeen game that it didn't quite work. But you're talking about like what Naismith's trying to do, and I think you could see it against Aberdeen. I think, yeah, let's not take anything away from it. Aberdeen were not good. They were not
Oh
good
no,
at
mate, never.
Tynecastle. They
Piss poor.
Yeah, they didn't. They certainly didn't turn up in any way I thought they would. Considering Barry Robson is probably under more pressure than Stephen Naismith is, which is or was prior to the game. Um, but yeah, they signed about 13 or 14 players in the summer. I don't think Barry Robson has any idea of his best team and his system yet. So maybe it was a good time to get them, especially at Tynecastle. Albeit these games between Hearts and Aberdeen always tend to be won by the home side. I saw that stat. It was like 18 games or something. The last 18 fixtures between the two sides, it's always been the home team that's won,
Right, yeah.
which is a
Fucking
bit
strange one
mad.
and all.
But yeah, it's a bit mental. But it just shows you, the away team in these games tend to just not turn up, and
Hmm.
Aberdeen just didn't turn up. But as I said after the game, it's about beating what's in front of you, and it doesn't matter, if Aberdeen had turned up and played really well, we'd still have to go out and beat them. We're at home, we should be winning games at Tynecastle, and I think Naismith nailed it in that sense. There were some things I didn't like, and there were some things that could probably improve, and they will. But considering how important that game was to get a win, even just for morale, after the international break, coming back from the start of the season being as bad as it was,
Hmm.
it's almost like a reset. It's almost like, right, we're out of Europe now. Let's forget about that. Let's just focus on the league and get back to doing what we're doing. And it certainly worked in the most part against Aberdeen.
100% agree. And we'll have to talk about the first positive outcome that came out of that game. Again, our was it was a Japanese superstar Oda again. I don't know what it is. I think the last few goals he scores has always been from that right side. Like, if I
Yeah.
remember rightly, he did it against Hibs, like, on the last game of the season. He did it against
Mhm.
St Johnstone away as well, and now
Yeah.
he's done it from there. So, that well, it clearly shows like where he's most comfortable and probably most confident as well. But it was a really good water finish as well, and set up by our own was the council estate dad was a Boyce as well, who also had a great game as well. But yeah, what did talk us through the goal, Alan? What were your thoughts on the build up?
Yeah, it was like you said, it was our important players all getting involved. It was Shankland knocked it to Boyce, and then Boyce plays the ball out to Oda, and he just sort of makes his way into the box. And I think in the commentary when I watched it back, Laurie was talking about it, and or it might have been Jimmy, I can't remember, but they were basically saying that Oda makes the right decision to have a shot because
Hmm.
he looks up in the box. There's not really a lot of options, or there are, but they're harder to get to. So Oda just thinks I'm just going to hit it, and fair play to him for hitting it. Like it's one
Uh-huh.
of those you hit it from there. Like you've said, it seems to be something that he likes attacking that area, which is obviously a positive. And he hits it, and it's the same old thing. And I'm sure I've said it already this season, probably about another Oda goal or about somebody else's goal. But it's the if you don't shoot, you're not going to score.
Uh-huh.
And it certainly took a deflection, but the Aberdeen goalkeeper, that Kelly Roos, he's a good goalkeeper. So the deflection obviously completely wrong foots him, and it goes in. But yeah, again, as I say, it's the don't shoot, don't score kind of mentality. And I'd said before a few weeks ago about the wish that I have for Hearts to start games better and to score in the first 20 minutes of a game. And to see them do that, okay, the first 5 minutes we weren't brilliant.
Yeah.
Aberdeen were probably they had a chance that Xander Clark had to save, but from that point on, we just kind of took over and scoring a goal after what was it like 14 minutes or
It
something.
was 14, yeah.
It yeah, it instantly puts you in a better position because you're up early and it's like right, that's good. The stadium was the fans were bouncing and it was great. So
Hmm.
that's what you want. You want an early goal just to kind of settle the nerves as well because I think again, like I'd said about the Motherwell game before that, the longer it goes at 0-0, the more nerves and the more kind of anxious people get in the stands. And if you score
Hmm.
early, you don't necessarily have to start at 100 miles an hour, but if you score early, that helps because it's like, right, we've got something that we can build on now, or, we can sit on it for a little bit. But yeah, it was a really, really good start. Boyce, And again, I could do an hour long podcast talking about Liam Boyce. Genuinely, I love that man. I absolutely love that man. And his influence on that team continues to grow into what we've seen before.
Mhm.
I really enjoyed Vargas and Oda on the wings. I know Oda went off with an injury in the first half, but starting with Vargas and Oda was really positive. Bit of pace and directness on both sides, rather than just one. So yeah, no, very very happy with that. Let's say very very good way to start the game. Boyce just doing what Boyce does, and Oda doing what Oda does apparently.
Absolutely, sir. I mean, just to kind of go through like a few points that you mentioned, like as well, yeah, like I do 100% agree. Like this game in particular, obviously we didn't end like like before the international break that great. Obviously there was the huge announcement that every single Heartsman was shocked that Naismith was like announced as the head coach, which I did not see coming. Um, but I think it was like a decision that had to be done. I think I think Frank I now think the reason that Frank was McAvoy had that stopwatch on was just to see how much time life they had as the head coach. They're like, all right, okay, that's my time done. Goodbye. But yeah, I
Right.
think in that same sense as well, I think for the Aberdeen game in particular, I think there was a pressure on all parties, like concerned, like with this being um what was it Naismith's first like official like sort of game in charge. I think now
Yeah,
there's not anywhere to actually run in that sense because
yeah,
we don't know who is what doing the team sheet or how we wanted to actually play throughout the start of the season. Yeah, it was probably Naismith, but like, we won't ever know. So,
no,
and I think like for the players as well, like they did want to have a reaction like from the games at the end of the season. Sorry, the season, and like before the international break. The fans as well, like being quite anxious as well, like not knowing what's happening. Are we actually going to get a
yeah,
result out of this? So I think yeah, I like I think you're all right. Like in that general sense to get that goal early-ish and it was and a good was a finish at that. Like I think that definitely was settled the nerves as well. Just as you mentioned him as well, Xander Clark with that early save as well. We have to give a mention to our oh my captain, Craig was Gordon, who did a pre-match interview with Rob was Borthwick as well, up in the was it in the thing was the main stand suite, like I think that's where the was a boxes, looking fucking glorious as ever. I don't care if we get was it copyrighted Liger strike for that swear word. Fucking love the man. Yeah, so he was saying that he was going back to full team training as we speak now, which is again I find remarkable considering that it was only
yeah.
9 months ago. Like insane. Like 9 months ago
It's crazy.
from his leg, like pointing like that, and he's doing
Yeah,
full team training. Unbelievable scenes. But um
yeah,
obviously he did mention that they don't want to put a date back as such to actually put more pressure on it, like just to see how he actually feels. But could you see like a Craig Gordon coming back, even if it's like at least on the actual bench before the year is out, Alan?
he's like you said, he's an unbelievable guy. Just
Yes, he
listening
is.
to him and hearing the things that he said, he just like it's one of those like we sat here when that horrific injury happened and basically wrote him off and said, well, do you know what? If he's not coming back, then what a career and all the rest of it. But then the progress that he's made and the speed of recovery and all the rest of it is just amazing.
Man of Steel,
It would, yeah, oh god, he's going to be more steel than man when he comes back. Like
one hundred
he's got
percent.
like a bionic man vibes. But yeah, it just gives you like a nice feeling to think, you know what, Gordon will come back. I don't like. I'm not going to sit here and say he's going to come back and play another 2 years or whatever because I don't know if that will happen. But even just for him to come back, even for a little bit,
Mm.
so that he can go out on his own terms is the thing that I always kind of want with any player that is close to retirement. It's like you want them to be able to go out on their own steam rather than an injury forcing
Of
them to
course,
go
yeah.
out. But yeah, no, I'd love to see Gordon back, even on the bench, like you say, before the end of the year. It would be amazing. But yeah, like I think Xander Clark is a very very good goalkeeper. Take nothing
Mm.
away from that, and I
Of
think
course it does.
I still say Xander Clark is our number one at this point. Whether he will be when Gordon comes back, I don't know. That would be a very very interesting one to keep an eye on. But yeah, it was just nice to hear him. And he also, in that interview, or I can't remember if it was that or if it was after, but he spoke about like training in the build up to the Aberdeen game. And he was saying that things have been a little bit different and, they've been focusing on different things. And that ties into the sort of Naismith chat that you were saying and the McAvoy chat that we've said before. I think the permanent announcement of Stephen Naismith makes a lot of sense. But going back to the game and sort of that side of things, it put a lot of pressure on Naismith, like you said
Mm.
about him being the man now, and he is the man now. Like Frankie McAvoy and Gordon Forrest are still with him on the bench,
Mm.
but Naismith is the man,
Mm.
and it's like, well, if it doesn't work or if something's not working or something's not right, he will be the man that gets questioned for it now, and rightly so. So yeah, there's pressure on Naismith to deliver straight off the bat, and obviously that started with the game against Aberdeen.
Yeah, well, no, man, exactly. And if we do start to play more of this kind of front foot, like was a football, again, like you and me have always said that, like even if we lose a game, as long as we've actually was it the game it like a goal, like I won't be too was it disappointed because
Yeah.
obviously like when we talked about the Pouk and Motherwell as well, it wasn't even the fact that we lost; it was just a manner of how we lost as well. Like so a lot more of that, please, and I'll be delighted. So yeah, as the first half went on, there was a lot of like whether backwards and forwards, but again, I felt relatively comfortable. I didn't after like the first goal went in. Aberdeen seemed a bit like sort of all over the place as well. Like, I mean, even after I watched it and then watching the sporting highlights, like as well, just to get a bit of the context as well. You know, I think it was Neil McCann. I think it was that I was on saying
Mm.
that
Yeah.
their back line looked all over the place, like as if like
Yeah.
they were pointing out that nobody was interested. Nobody wanted to actually get on that actual ball. So all that there for the keeper, Drus, as you actually mentioned, just kept doing was just like proofing it up the park. So I'd say in that sense it was a relatively easy game for Hearts as well. But going into the second half as well, as you mentioned there, where the boys got back on the score sheet after over a year, if I'm right in saying, which is hard to
Mm-hmm.
believe. Like ridiculous amount of time passed, but like again as well, like I mean, after he scored it, yeah, like granted his celebrations were quite what was it nonchalant, we shall say, but you could see like was it on his face that he was absolutely delighted to get back on the score sheet, and hopefully there will be many more of those to come for the rest of the season, sir.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Boyce's goal, a player that contributed quite a lot to it that I wanted to mention was Callum Newtonhoff, who came off the
Yes.
bench for Peter Haring in the second half. Peter Haring, again, like I said earlier, didn't have his best game, but he got booked quite early. So, as we've said about Cammy Devlin a few times, when they get booked, it kind of limits what they can do. And,
Mhm.
Peter Haring got booked for one of his trademark slide tackles. Completely pointless, needless
Yeah.
slide tackle. There was no need for him to do it when he gets booked for it. So, it kind of limits what he could do after that. But I think again, Naismith got it right in bringing him off and bringing on Neuenhoff because the game was going that way where there was a lot of fouls and the referee, Kevin Clancy, was enjoying his yellow cards a bit much. So Naismith brought him off and brought on Callum Neuenhoff for the second half. And it was a brief appearance from Callum Neuenhoff, but he impressed me
Yeah.
with his play all round. I was doing some digging of some stats, and there was like we were talking about, progressive play and moving it forward. Peter Haring in the first half, or during his time on the pitch, played 2 passes into the final third. Callum Nieuwenhof was on for the second half, played 4. Cammy Devlin played the full 90 minutes, and I'll compare this to Motherwell. He played full or almost the full 90 minutes in that game. And in that game against Motherwell, Cammy Devlin played a pass into the final third 3 times in 89 minutes or so before he went off. Against Aberdeen, he played 10 times passes into the final third. So it shows you that we were a bit
Yeah.
more on the front foot and a bit more, trying to take risks and play passes. But back to Callum Nieuwenhof, I was very impressed with his work rate. And I think one of the things that I enjoyed most about our midfield in general, before I even talk about Boyce's goal, when they played those forward passes and they tried to get it into the forward areas, if it didn't work, or if an Aberdeen player intercepted it, they were snapping back at them trying to get it back. It was like Cammy Devlin in particular. It was like watching him on a European night. That was big game Cammy that we saw against Aberdeen. And if that can be every week, Cammy, then we better get him on a new contract ASAP.
100%.
But no, back to the Boyce goal. Yeah, it was Cal Neuenhoff that picked the ball up and sort of drove into the box. He got a little bit lucky with a few little deflections that brought it back to him, and then he just puts it across, and again it deflects up, and Boyce is where Boyce is, in the right place at the right time. And
Mm-hmm.
for him to get that goal, as I say, it kind of crowns that comeback of Liam Boyce. And again, like I say, I could do a Liam Boyce podcast for an hour. But everything about Boyce was summed up in that movement. He was involved in the build up. He was making a nuisance of himself, and he gets in a position where he's right in front of the goalkeeper. The ball breaks to him, and he just puts it in the roof of the net. And then, yeah, really, really, really positive play from Neuenhoff. So, could he be a midfielder that we see a bit more of? We've kind of given him a free pass in the meantime because we haven't seen much of him.
Mm-hmm.
But again, as I say, I love my glorious Austrian. But if Callum Neuenhoff is going to be the heir to the glorious Austrian's throne, then I'll get on board with that at the moment.
That's fair dues, man. I would agree with that. Yeah, was it like I thought Noonhoff showed us what the glimpses like what we hoped he would be. Granted, I know it was only for the last was a 45, but again, if we can see like a bit more and like a bit more of that as each week as it goes on, then I'll be absolutely was delighted as well. I nearly pushed my pants as well when the Vargas took that fucking hit, and mate, if that had went in the back in the net, that would have been up there with was it Austin Can's goal like back in 2003 against Celtic. Fucking rager, mate. I mean, he still to get that like sort of that first goal, like I mean, I kind of compared it back when we first signed was a Barry Mackay, and everybody was like sort of urging and just waiting for that first goal
Yeah,
just to go and just to get him started. I don't
yeah,
know if that would kind of be on the same kind of pathway where if he did get that first goal, then that's him like sort of all on a roll now. But again, the more and more that Vargas has played, I think he's only gotten slightly better. Like, you know what I mean? I don't think there's been any kind of dip as such, like, so he is a bit different in terms of the player, like he is compared to Joshua Janelli as well. But from what we've seen so far, I think there's only like sort of consistency there. So that was also nice to see. And just like be where we end like sort of on the Aberdeen like sort of talk, one player that was arguably the most improved on the pitch as well was our Rowles as well. Again, not to get like sort of too carried away as well, because obviously Aberdeen weren't that great as well. But from the full the game, I thought he did all right. I thought he did all right. But as I said again, Alan, like I think was it consistency like is key. And if he can take that word of confidence into to next week and throughout the whole was it a season, then hopefully we can see the Kai Rowles of the past. Was if we say, and hopefully he'll be a
yeah.
bit more was table as we go on.
Yeah, yeah. Kai is. I've said this for a long time. I think Kai's a good defender. I think he gets not unfair criticism because he does make mistakes every so often, and a lot of the time his mistakes have led to goals for the opposition, which isn't
Mm-hmm.
good for a defender. But I posed it a few weeks ago when I was talking about Kai Rowles and the possibility of him being dropped. I said maybe it was the time to drop him, but equally there was that element of maybe he's the sort of player that just needs to keep being played, to find that confidence again. And it seems that that's what it is. Naismith spoke about him. I can't remember if it was before or after. I think it was after the game.
I was after,
Naismith
yeah.
made, yeah, he made a lot of comments about Rowles and basically said, I've been speaking to him, I've been telling him how good he is, and he just telling him what he needs to improve and be a bit more physical because he's got good attributes and all the rest of it. And it's true, Kai
Yeah.
Rowles, when it comes to reading the game, is very good. He had a few physical battles against Aberdeen. I think it was that Majowski and that little diving duck as well. But they dealt with him. They dealt with him really well.
Oh,
The whole back
Natty
line
had
did
him in his
well.
pocket, sir. The amount of
Yeah,
memes
oh,
I saw
proper.
like after the game, fantastic.
It's funny. I mean, it's funny because, like we said, Aberdeen weren't particularly good because they weren't, but they did have a few moments where they were breaking forward, and our defense just dealt with them. And Kai Rowles was a big part of that. So, as you say, good good moments from Kai, but St Mirren next week is a different challenge. They've got big physical players that will be well aware of Kai Rowles' weakness and will try and test him further. So hopefully he stands up to that.
Nice one, Alan. Well, as we said at the start, we'll do our the preview for our next away. It was a fixture, which is always fun. Away to St Mirren. Our last five fixtures against the side from Glasgow has been two wins for Hearts, two draws, and one win for St Mirren, which was obviously the game at the end of last was a season, which was the only game I attended, and it was my nephew's first game as well. What a way to start his first Hearts visit game, which was an absolute dross, which then saw Robbie Nielsen get sacked. So, like, at least something good was it that came out of it. So, Alan, when we do like we usually talk about like sort of any like away fixture, like we always say, oh, like it's a massive game. We've not got like a particularly good record there, which seems to be the overall theme of our like away like sort of like form in general. But St it wouldn't be at the top of my list to actually think, oh, that's a ridiculously hard place to actually go. Like there have been quite a few occasions where we have actually done the well there. So going into this game at this like this the start of the Naismith regime, what are your thoughts? And after the game, just at the the weekend there, albeit as we've said, Aberdeen not at the best. Are you feeling a bit more kind of really confident, like that this team have had a bit of like revitalization, if that is a word, or are we doing our usual the season is that we're going to be as confident as we allow ourselves to actually be, sir?
I think it's interesting. I think it's going to be a really, really interesting game. I think, like we said about the Aberdeen game and all that, like we were good. We weren't brilliant. We haven't completely turned a corner from Motherwell. It wasn't like night and day. There were improvements.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, as we said, Aberdeen were not particularly great. We just took advantage of that.
Yeah.
But we played well against Aberdeen. But I think we can be better than that. And I think Naismith will be internally saying that to the team as well. That was Frankie Kent made an interview about it after the game and spoke about how big a club Hearts are, and that should be the minimum requirement is winning games like we won against Aberdeen. But obviously we're laughing and joking and saying, "Oh, we're back, we're back." We're winning everything. The next three games are all away from home before we
Yes.
are back at Tynecastle in a derby. So,
Yes.
it,
Hearts are back.
yeah,
Hearts are
as
definitely
is
back
our
after these three games.
oh, absolutely, mate, absolutely. I think it'll be very, very tough. I think St Mirren have started the season very well. In fairness to them, They are still unbeaten at home. They got a win against Dundee, a win against Motherwell, and they would have won against Aberdeen, but Aberdeen scored a penalty in the last minute and got a 2-2 draw in that one. So, in as much as I think we've got a chance and I think we've got a good opportunity, I think St Mirren are a good side. At the early point of the season, anyway, they've certainly done well. Um, Whether you can put that down to ourselves and Aberdeen and Hibs all being involved in Europe, and the St Mirrens and the Motherwells have taken advantage and found themselves at the top end of the table, or not. St Mirren are a decent side, and as I said before about Kai Rowles, it'll be a different test for him. It'll be a different test for the defence, but I will be very, very interested to see what Naismith does team selection wise, whether he'll play the same 11 that started against Aberdeen. Obviously, he's not able to because I don't know if Oda will be fit or not. Haven't gone off with an injury, but it'll be very, very interesting. I think we have a chance to get something. Whether I want to sit here and say I'm as confident as I can bring myself to be, I'm not sure. um, because we've been down this road many times with Hearts where it's like you have a really good result, which it was against Aberdeen. Performance aside, winning 2-0 against a side like Aberdeen, who, whatever you say about them, they'll be up there at the end of the season. I
Mm-hmm.
fully believe that they'll still be one of the teams that challenges at the top end of the table because they're a solid side, albeit they didn't show it against us, but they're still kind of learning and growing. But we needed to win that game against Aberdeen, and I think away to St Mirren, we need to go away from home and show what we can do away from home. Because it's
Mm-hmm.
all well and good Naismith talking about Tynecastle and bringing the feel good factor back and playing on the front foot and all the rest of it, but we've seen away from home that doesn't always work. Um, so we need to put our style on that game away from home, and I think we can do it. I think we can do it. I think you know the players will be a lot happier this week than they were after the Motherwell game, for
Mm.
example. So that can hopefully feed into a positive outcome away from home. But again, I'm cautious in predicting an away result
Careful.
for us because I just don't know.
Yeah, no, no, man. I get you. I mean, yeah, I mean, arguably, you could say that Aberdeen are on paper was it the better side than St Mirren. However, for us, you could arguably say that it's a bit more of a test. That like was him, as you said, it's away from home. St Mirren, like I've started was quite well, as you actually said. You know, with this new kind of Naismith regime, like like it's obviously going to be a different test. Was it like again, as you said, away from home? I think this has to be one. I mean, well, I'd like to think that this has to be one of the key sort of like sort of goals on the agenda that they set at the start of the season for our like away form to drastically change, and I mean like drastically
Yeah.
change. Like even if it's to add like a was it a certain like amount of points like by the end of the season for the life of me I should know this how many games we play throughout the whole year. Obviously I am have them like played away from home, but again I'd like to actually think that compared to what we've like accrued at points wise throughout the last like sort of 3 4 5 years to then say right, um, that's our mark, that's our goal. Like that's what I want to actually see. So yeah, like you're right. Like I'm trying not to get ahead of myself because obviously, like as we jokingly said at the start, yeah, Hearts are back. Once he's three like away games, like we've lost to both um County, St Mirren. Was it Kilmarnock? Hearts are then definitely back. So, but yeah, like I'd like to think that we have like there'll be a bit more of a test in terms of improvement for Cincinnati at the Mirren as well, but you know, and this is where like sort of things will start to actually like make sense. What was if I think with my head, but in terms of a prediction wise, I don't know, like it's that game screams a draw. and that's kind of been my main theme throughout this season so far. I'm actually starting to think,
Yeah.
well, logically, like, you know what I mean, not think that we'll win 5 now, and was it Halliday will they get a hat trick? No, but yeah, I don't know why I'm thinking a 2-2 draw, which won't be like a terrible result, like all things
Hmm.
considering. But yeah, I'm thinking a 2-2 draw, like away from home. And it will be
Yeah.
interesting to actually hear what your what the predictions are, sir.
Think I feel quite similar to yourself, to be honest with you. I think it'll
Fucking
be like
such a
I don't know
positive podcast we
who
are, eh?
who would have thought, who would have thought I feel similar to yourself and we agree on something again. One of these days we'll disagree on something.
Oh yeah, 100%. When that
I
day
don't
will
know
come,
what
I
it'll
have no
be,
idea, but
but I think it's going to be a big test, as I say.
Mm,
I think we'll learn a lot more about Stephen Naismith Hearts and where we're going after
yeah.
this game. Um, yeah, I'm with you. I think a draw is a probable outcome. They were
Mm,
winning 2-1 against Aberdeen, and Aberdeen scored the last minute penalty and got a 2-all draw in that game. So it could well happen again.
mm,
But yeah, do you know what? Just to be different, just to be different. And although we're not doing any sort of prediction leagues anymore, thank fuck for
thank
that.
God.
Um, and to try and end on some form of positive note, I'm going to go for a 2-1 win to the Hearts. That's what I'm aiming
Ooh,
for.
good man, good man. Well, obviously, like as always, guys, we would love to hear your prediction as well for the submit game. And also a question that we could put out on the Twitter just to end things, but I would like to hear your answer on it, Alan. So obviously, arguably, I think we said a few weeks ago that Kent, well, was Frankie Kent, uh, we said arguably he's probably our best signing, I would say, in terms of his form. Um, and then I recently saw just last week as well, what you probably saw as well, is that our old was it the consistent right back Michael Smith finally got signed for the club, which was amazing to see as well. Like, you know, because he deserves like a few more years, like especially at the age he's at. I believe it was Yeovil Town. So
Yeah,
absolutely brilliant for him. But as I said, like, to put it out to the watchers and to yourself as well, Alan, could Frankie Kent be the new Mr. Consistent in this Hearts the current squad?
I think that's a good shout.
Mm,
I really do. I think he's added something.
yeah,
Yeah, he's been consistent so far, and I
yeah,
think Gordon mentioned something about him saying, he's a leader in the dressing room as well, which is amazing too
yeah.
for a boy that's just walked in. Yeah, I was really happy to see Michael Smith get a new club. Just a shame they play in green, but it is what it is. It
Oh,
doesn't
fucking
suit him.
disgusting colour, eh?
The green doesn't suit him, but
Ah,
thankful for that. But aye, yeah, Frankie Kent is magic, as the song goes.
mm,
So yeah, I'll back that, Mister Consistent. But another one I want to mention while we're talking about signings and just to kind of wrap off because I never really mentioned it, the Vargas shot that hit the post.
mm.
I cannot wait for that little guy to score a goal. I cannot wait. I said it after I think it was Cammy Devlin and then Oda. I cannot wait for Vargas to get a
No,
goal.
mate.
The boy, he seems so enthusiastic. He gives me Cammy Devlin vibes, like a little guy that's just absolutely buzzing. And I
Rapid
can't
fun.
wait for him to get a goal. Hopefully, he scores the winner against St Mirren and we win 2-1.
Absolutely. So that would be a sight to see. But yeah, as always, guys, thank you very much for watching. We do really appreciate it as well. And as always, if you aren't subscribed to the podcast, please think about subscribing. And if you want to get in contact with us via our social links as well, all will be in the description and on screen. And for everybody making the trip to St Mirren this weekend as well, we do hope you have a great result to come back with. And we will see you in the next one. So from myself and Alan, you all take care. Bye for now.